Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm Andrew. Travis can't make it again for this video, but today I'm going to be talking about my week 2 previews and for each single game for the NFL this week in week 2. So let's get right into it, starting with the Bears and the Buccaneers at Tampa Bay. Obviously, Tampa Bay just went through Hurricane Irma, so I mean it's a tough time right now for Tampa Bay. But based off what I've heard, they didn't really get the worst of it. So. Uh, all my thoughts and prayers are out to them, obviously in the Florida area, as well as Houston for the hurricanes that have just happened over the past couple of weeks. But just sticking to football at this point, I think this will be another really good game. The Bears really surprised some people last week by keeping it so close against the Falcons. They were 5 yards away from pulling off the upset there. So against the Buccaneers, who are coming off another week of rust, but they also might have some rust and some maybe not used to having going 60 minutes of full game action. I think the Bears might have a little bit of an advantage here, even though it's at Tampa Bay. The home crowd's going to be emotional. They're going to be behind Tampa Bay in this one. But, it's really tough. The Bears have a really good defense, and I think they proved that last week against the Falcons, other than 2 really bad plays late in the game. And the Tampa Bay defense, even though they were a lot better last year, they got a lot better as the year went on. They do struggle against the run, which is the strength of the Chicago Bears offense. So I think, the Bears can force a few turnovers off of Jameis Winston. They're going to run the ball a lot. It's going to be a close game. And I might be being a homer here in saying this, but I think the Bears do pull off the upset here and beat Tampa Bay, mostly because of the rust factors and just not playing last week, I think, for Tampa Bay. I think if they played last week and kind of got their feet under them and were able to get the rust off and get their conditioning in for, playing a full game, getting used to that, I think they would probably win this one at home. But coming off their bye week, so to speak, I think the Bears can pull this one off. It'll be interesting how they use Tariq Cohen again. Obviously, the secret's out of the bag into what he can do. For Tampa Bay, it'll be interesting to see how they use their tight ends and O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. 2 really good tight ends. I know Jameis Winston loves to throw to Brate, but O.J. Howard's a really special weapon in my opinion. And, that could create some mismatches for the Chicago Bears defense there. So moving on, the next game is the Browns and the Ravens at Baltimore. For me, I think the Ravens, they just dominated the Bengals last week. I think they're going to do a similar thing against the rookie quarterback and DeShone Kizer this week. Their defense is just loaded right now. They have pass rushers. They can stop the run. They have great secondary. Their linebackers are really good. They just got the full package on defense right now. I think they don't stop this week against the Browns in their home opener. I think easy win for the Ravens. Well, not easy win, but I'm going to take the Ravens in this one again just because their defense is so good. I think Joe Flacco can create a few big plays in the passing game with some of their speedy wide receivers here. It'll be interesting to see how this game goes. I'm interested to see how DeShone Kizer plays. He had a pretty good week last week against Pittsburgh, obviously a much, much weaker defense. But going against a really good defense, maybe a top 5 defense for this season, I'm interested to see how he plays. For the Ravens, I'm interested in seeing how if their running game can kind of repeat itself going to this week. I think they had above 158 yards, I think, of rushing last week against the Bengals. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of pull that off again. So next game I have is Bills-Panthers at Carolina. Carolina's home opener in this one. The Panthers played pretty well against a really bad 49ers team. Cam Newton looked a little bit rusty in his throwing. Didn't really complete a high percentage passes again. I thought they used Christian McCaffrey pretty decently. Didn't really have a big game, but he does create some mismatches. And I think from a talent standpoint, Panthers have just way more talent than the Bills. I think they get the win here at home. For the Bills, it'll be interesting to see if Tyrod Taylor can kind of, if there is a weakness in this Carolina defense, it might be their secondary. Their pass rush is really good, so I'll be looking out for it. Tyrod Taylor can kind of take advantage, maybe some mismatches in the secondary and use his arm to kind of create some big plays. Next game I got is Cardinals and Colts. This one's a tough one. I think Jacoby Brissett is going to be starting for the Colts in this one, which, is a lot better than Scott Tolzien for sure. Tolzien played absolutely awful against the Los Angeles Rams last week. But for the Cardinals, David Johnson is out for a while on the injured reserve. So they're going to have to rely on Carson Palmer in this one to kind of get that offense moving. Their defense is going to be pretty good against, a young quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who's only in his second week with the Colts. So I think this will be another ugly game to watch. This is a tough one for me because I don't really trust Carson Palmer at this point, but I can't trust the Colts without Andrew Luck at all because they might have the worst roster in the league. Because Andrew Luck does so much for that team. They kind of proved that last week where there's just a lack of talent on this team all across the board. I'm going to go with the Cardinals on the road in this one. I think they have enough talent in this one to kind of pull it off. I think Carson Palmer can have a bounce-back week against a really weak defense in the Indianapolis Colts. If Jared Goff can throw for 300 yards against this Colts defense, I think Carson Palmer can give you similar production, I think. So going forward, Titans-Jaguars. The Titans lost against the Raiders last week, while the Jaguars surprised a lot of people by absolutely demolishing the Houston Texans last week. They had 10 sacks. Franchise record. Calais Campbell had 4 sacks in his team debut. So this defensive front looks mean. They look nasty. Their defense looks really good for Jacksonville. But they'll be put to the test against a Titans team that's going to run the ball down their throats, or at least attempt to. DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. Marcus Mariota can do a lot of things with his legs as well. So that's a really good matchup to me to watch the battles in the trenches between the offensive line for the Titans and the defensive line for the Jaguars for this one. On the offensive side for the Jaguars, I'm really not sure how much they can get out of Blake Bortles. I think the Titans will try and do whatever they can to stop the run and Leonard Fournette and, what the Jaguars are going to try and do. It was pretty clear last week that no matter how they're going to run the ball, the Jaguars are going to feed Leonard Fournette as much as possible and basically just run it until they can't run it, until they have to throw it. So, I mean, that's a good strategy, I guess, to keep the ball out of Blake Bortles' hands. He's a turnover machine. So I guess a weaker defense in the Titans. I think Blake Bortles might have a bigger game this week, but I also think he might be more prone to throw some interceptions because they might have to open it up a bit because I think the Titans will keep the ball a lot more. They'll be able to run the ball. They have a better offensive line than the Houston Texans, obviously. So this is another tough one for me. I'm going to take the Titans on the road. I don't trust the Jacksonville Jaguars just quite yet, mostly because of Blake Bortles, but that defense looks really good. It's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be kind of an old-school game for me. Both teams really love to run the ball, so that'll be a fun one to watch. Next, I have Eagles-Chiefs. Andy Reid getting another chance to get revenge against his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Chiefs looked like the best team in the NFL last week, absolutely destroying the New England Patriots at Foxborough. So I'm not sure if Kareem Hunt's going to have another big game like he did last week, but I think the Chiefs did show that they have a lot more explosiveness offensively than a lot of people were giving them credit for going into the season. For the Eagles, it was kind of a mixed bag offensively last week, but they did show some potential for what they can be offensively going forward. Alshon Jeffrey didn't really get involved in the offense a lot last week. I expect that to kind of change this week. I know he's going up against Marcus Peters, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, but I think Alshon Jeffrey, his size and his strength, will be able to get a few big plays for the Eagles there. But at Arrowhead, this is a tough environment for second-year quarterback Carson Wentz to kind of maneuver here. I think it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a defensive battle because the Eagles, they have a really good defense. The Chiefs have a great defense, as we all know. Even though Eric Berry is out, I think the Chiefs pull this one off at Arrowhead with all the pass rushers that they have. Justin Houston's going to have a pretty big game, I think, even though the Eagles do have a pretty good offensive line. So I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one at Arrowhead in a defensive struggle. My next game here is Patriots-Saints. I think this one's going to be a shootout. You have two really great offenses with the Saints and Drew Brees. I mean, they're still trying to figure out with Adrian Peterson what he can bring. But against the Patriots, I think they're just going to try and air it out against one because Tom Brady, and that Patriots team, they got embarrassed last week, and they're going to want to come back with some bite here and try and embarrass the Saints here at the Superdome here. And I think the Patriots will win this one. I think they're not going to get embarrassed 2 weeks in a row, or their defense is not going to get embarrassed 2 weeks in a row. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but it's not going to be as demoralizing as was last week against the Chiefs, where the Chiefs just proved that the Patriots just couldn't stop them. It'll be high-scoring, but not to that degree. And I think the Patriots are still trying to figure out their offense a little bit with, Demi Amendola and Julian Edelman, out with injuries. I think Brandon Cooks has a big game in his going home game to New Orleans against the Saints. I think he'll have a big game here. But Yeah, I'm going to take the Patriots in this one. Again, like I said earlier, the Patriots, every single time they've lost a season opener in the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era, they've gone on to win the Super Bowl. So obviously, losing in week one isn't a big deal for this Patriots team. I think they bounce back here and get a win and a shootout against the Saints. I think this might be the funnest game to watch this week in terms of a scoring perspective. So the next game we have is Vikings Steelers. These are two teams that won last week. The Steelers won in very ugly fashion against the Browns. We know Big Ben has his struggles on the road, and he kind of proved that again last week. Just the offense just wasn't in sync. Le'Veon Bell really struggled in his first game back from his holdout, trying to get a new contract basically. The opposite can be said for the Vikings, though. They were really sharp last week against New Orleans. Sam Bradford looked like a franchise quarterback, quite frankly, last week. He had 3 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs had a really big game against that weak secondary for the New Orleans Saints. I don't think the Steelers' secondary is as weak as the New Orleans Saints secondary, though. So I think Sam Bradford will come down to earth a little bit. They're going to have to rely on Dalvin Cook a little bit more this week. I think this will be a really good game, though. It's a great defense against a great offense matchup that I just love those kind of matchups here. I think the Steelers pull this one off, though, because Big Ben at home, he usually figures it out at home, has a lot of big games there. I think Le'Veon Bell will have a better game this week. And I don't think anyone can stop Antonio Brown at this point. So just going for it, I think Steelers win this one. Their offense will put up enough points on the board, and I think Sam Bradford kind of falls back to earth a little bit with his performance. Not to say that he's going to be bad or anything, but I don't think he's going to go out there and look like Drew Brees like he did last week. So moving on, we have Dolphins Chargers. Dolphins didn't play last week again because of Hurricane Irma, and the Chargers, they looked really okay last week against the Denver Broncos. Their offense really struggled for the first 3 quarters, and they kind of had a last-minute comeback to kind of make the game interesting. It was a really good game to watch against the Chargers and Broncos. But, they just I don't know. Their offense looked a little bit out of sorts, I think, for most of the night. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the Denver has maybe the best defense in the NFL still. They're going up against a much weaker defense than the Dolphins, so I think they figure it out in this game. And this is a really intriguing game for me because this is Jay Cutler's debut with the Miami Dolphins. So I'm really interested in seeing what he can do with Adam Gase again and how good that sort of quarterback-coach marriage can be. I know these 2 guys are great working together. So I'm not really sure how they'll do against a really good Chargers defense. Jay Cutler's had success against the Chargers defense in the past. Obviously, he doesn't like – Philip Rivers and Jay Cutler do not like each other at all. So that's going to be really fun to watch those 2 guys kind of get after it and compete against each other. But I'm going to go with the Chargers here at home. Just their home debut. They've had a week to kind of get their feet on them, get their conditioning in, kind of get the rust off. And the Dolphins, they still haven't played their first game yet. So they're going to be a little bit rusty for this one. They've had a little bit more time to prepare, obviously. But, again, I'm going to go with the same logic I used for Tampa Bay. They're going to be a little bit rusty in this one. Jay Cutler may have a few miscommunications with his wide receivers, possibly. So we'll see how that goes there. But I'm going to take the Chargers in a really close game, probably going to be in the 20s, I think, score-wise. Next game, we have Jets-Raiders. I'm not going to really go into much analysis here. Raiders in a blowout. Just leave it at that. This might be the best game of the week coming up here. Cowboys-Broncos at Denver. So I'm really interested in seeing if this Cowboys offense was just so efficient against the New York Giants. They didn't really put up a lot of points. They were still very efficient against a really good Giants defense last week. So I'm interested in seeing how they do against the Broncos defense that is just dominant. They were dominant for a majority of the game against the Chargers before they kind of rallied late in the game. And Trevor Siemian looked surprisingly very sharp on that Monday night. He looked very good. So I think against a Cowboys defense that they played well last week against a really inept Giants offense without OBJ. I'm not sure if they can repeat that type of performance, especially against a Broncos team that has 2 really good wide receivers in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And I know they're going to try and run the ball with C.J. Anderson. So I'm going to go with the Broncos on this one. I think I just think they get after Dak Prescott a little bit more than the Giants did with that insane pass rush. I know the offensive line is really good for the Cowboys. But I think that that defense for the Broncos, they're legit, man. And I just like the Broncos in this one at home. So moving on, got Redskins, Rams. Rams surprised a lot of people last week with completely blowing out the Colts. It was not even close from the start. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Andrew Luck wasn't playing for that game, so that makes a huge difference. But Jared Goff looked really good. Threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Really liked what I saw from him. He's showing that he's taking a lot of steps. He looks like an NFL potential starting franchise quarterback for them in that game. I know it's against a really weak defense, though. So going against a Redskins defense, though, they're better than the Colts, obviously, but I'm not sure their defense is that marginally better than the Colts defense. So I think Jared Goff can have another solid game. He's got a week of tape on him now for this year. Sean McVay, though, is doing a really good job with him. But I think the Rams will win this one because, Kirk Cousins really struggled last week against the Eagles, just never got into rhythm. He's got a lot of new receivers that he's got to get, adapted to. It might take some time for them to really start clicking, I think. And, the Rams with, Wade Phillips as their defensive coordinator, he's not going to give Kirk Cousins a lot of time to adjust here. They're getting Aaron Donald back this week, who will only play in a limited role because he's been holding out for a new contract. But, I mean, it's just – I think the Rams will just get after Kirk Cousins in this one. Wade Phillips, one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. I think he'll just be doing a good job of creating pressure on Kirk Cousins all day long. I think the Rams get another win here. Not sure if it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be a lot closer, I think. But I think it's going to be kind of a low-scoring game in this one. Next one, we got Seahawks and the 49ers at Seattle. I'm going to keep it pretty brief here. I think Seattle's going to win this one, bounce back after an ugly game against Green Bay. I don't think it's going to be particularly close either. The 49ers don't really show me anything that they can compete against a team like Seattle. I think they start to solve their offensive line issues in this one and get a pretty significant win here. This next game has a chance to be a really big shootout, kind of similar to Patriots New Orleans. Packers going to Atlanta to play the Falcons. NFC Championship rematch. So this is going to be a really fun one to watch, I think. It's going to be a shootout for sure. Packers, I thought they looked pretty they didn't really look too good, I think, for the first 3 or so quarters of that game against Seattle last week. Obviously, Seattle's got a great defense. But going against a Falcons team that, showed that maybe their offense isn't as good as it will be last year against the Bears defense that admittedly did play very well other than 2 plays here late in the game. But I still think the Falcons, they'll figure out their offense, and against a Packers defense that, they played well against the Seattle Seahawks team, but the Seattle Seahawks have a terrible offensive line, which really impacted the game for them. The Falcons have a great offensive line, and consequently, I think Matt Ryan's going to have enough time to kind of pick that young secondary of the Packers apart and really have a field day. Julio Jones, I think, is going to have a really big game in this one. And I don't see anyone on the Packers really matching up with the running backs in the passing game, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman. I think those two have really big games as well, catching balls out of the backfield. For the Packers, they have Aaron Rodgers, so they're obviously going to be in this one because he's a man. He's a crazy man. He's a bad man. He's really good. So Packers, I think they're going to be in this one. It's going to be a shootout. Aaron Rodgers is going to have another big game. I know the Falcons have a very fast and a much better defense than last year, but against a team like Aaron Rodgers, who he's going to find a way to pick them apart. He's got a lot of weapons at his disposal, so it's going to be a shootout. But I'm going to take the Falcons in this one at home. It's going to be an exciting game to watch, though. And last but not least, Monday night, we got Giants-Lions. This is an interesting one for me. It's at New York, home opener for the Giants. OBJ is going to be back this week, I believe, but he's not going to be 100% quite yet. So I'm not really sure how I feel about the Giants' offense. They look pretty terrible last week against a very mediocre Cowboys defense. For the Lions, they had a pretty impressive win. Matthew Stafford started off really bad with a pick 6 early in his game against the Cardinals last week. But after that, they had another fourth quarter comeback, and I know we keep on saying here at the Sports Fan Network that the Lions can't possibly repeat their success from last year with all these fourth quarter come from behind victories, and they keep on doing it. So it's hard to really count them out in any game, really. I think the Giants have a really good defense, though. I think they're gonna shut down the Lions passing attack. Their secondary is just stacked right now. I think they're going to do a really good job of making it tough on Matthew Stafford. I'm going to take the Giants in this one in a kind of ugly, low-scoring game. A lot of turnovers, I think, in this one because Stafford still has some, he still has some tendencies to throw some, interesting, debatable balls, so to speak, throwing it into double coverage and whatnot. Same for Eli Manning. He's very turnover-prone as well. And I don't think OBJ, while that will definitely help their offense, I don't think it's going to really make a huge, significant impact quite yet because he's not 100% healthy. And I think there was a lot of problems on this offense besides the fact that OBJ wasn't there. Their offensive line is obviously not very good at all. So, and they still can't run the ball. So, but I'm going to take the Giants in this one at home. Their defense is going to be very good against a Lions team that, for all I know, they could, have another miracle comeback victory, but I'm not calling it again for 2 weeks in a row. So those are my thoughts on week 2 for the NFL. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys.